Alrighty, how y'all doing? Richmond coming back at you with another budget lens review. Today we're going to be looking at the SMC Pentax F 50mm 1.7. Now this is one of those lenses that I did search far and wide to find a great deal as to getting this lens. I believe I bought it with this camera actually right here. Pristine condition, and believe a M lens as well. So I got it, I would say about like 80 bucks for the whole thing. So I paid, probably 40-50 bucks for this lens, which is not bad. But it was a very hard lens to find at a good price because it is a great lens. It's a very desirable lens. So first off, let's thank God for the ability to take these photos. If it wasn't for Him, I wouldn't be able to take any of these amazing photos or of any of these amazing things that He created. So thank God. And then we're going to take a look at the 4 categories. We're going to take a look at the affordability, the accessibility, the build quality, and the versatility of this exact lens. This is a budget lens review, so I'm going to be reviewing it from the perspective of somebody that is on a budget or new to photography, and whether or not this is a great lens for them to pick up, or if there's other alternatives, and I will mention some of those other alternatives in this video. Now, with that being said, let's get into this budget lens review. Let's first start off with the affordability of this lens. My handy dandy phone is here. For the affordability, I put a 6 because most copies that I've seen of this lens, the cheapest I've seen it go for is about 80 bucks. All the other copies are about double the price, about 160. Like 80 to 160 is what you're going to get this lens for. Very rarely will you find it attached to a camera body and then be able to get the camera body and the lens for 100 bucks. Which kind of increases the value of that package, because then you can go and sell that camera body for an additional $20 to $60 and therefore come get that cost back to you. But very rarely do you find that. And there's a good reason why for that, because it is one of the better lenses. There is an F version of this lens, which is around $300. And then you do have the DA version of this lens, which I happen to have, which is right here. So I may mention that a couple other times also with the other at 50mm, which I want to do a side-by-side comparison of all 4 of the 50mm that I do happen to have. So that is a 6 for me. It's not super affordable, especially if you take a look at some of the older versions of the lens. It is not that, it's just not that affordable compared to a couple other versions. So next, let's take a look at the accessibility of this lens. What can you do if you use it? So the whole thing about this whole budget lens review is that you will be able to use any K-mount lens with your adapter. If you get a K-mount adapter for your camera body, Sony, Lumix, Canon, Fujifilm, Olympus, Nikon, Blackmagic, like you can use any of these K-mount lenses, which there's hundreds of these lenses that you can use, which makes this extremely affordable system to use, and that's why the K-mount is like great for budget conscious people. So when it comes to accessibility of this, if you do not have a fully functioning adapter where you can control aperture and the autofocus, this still has the manual focus, which makes it quite desirable, and it still has the manual aperture. So you get a really good quality lens that still has the ability to be used manually. So you can actually use this with those adapters. Now granted, it is heavier than the other lenses, which makes it a little bit harder to use. But if you're able to get one that has the ability to use those features, this knocks it immediately up to a 9. If you don't have an adapter that allows you to use those features, it knocks it back down to an 8. Because this is a very easy lens to use when you have those features. Or if you happen to have a Pentax, it's going to work flawlessly and it's going to be extremely easy to use in those cases. So it is easy to throw the focus. There are several times where I took it off autofocus and I just used manual focus. Aperture was really easy to set in the camera. You can set it manually, you can set it with the camera. I don't shoot with aperture priority, I don't shoot with shutter priority or any of those modes. I use shoot manual because that's what I'm used to. But in theory, if you were to use those modes with the adapter that works for this lens, then it would be extremely easy to use. So that is a 9 for me. if you have a capable adapter. If not, and you have to use it all manual, it's an 8 because it's a prime lens. All SMC prime lenses are extremely easy to use. Maybe even a high 7 just because this focus ring is really small compared to some of the other ones, but the throw is really easy. You can even use one finger to do it, so that makes it extremely easy. So next, let's talk about build quality. The build quality on this is definitely going to be a 9. It is not weatherproof, it is not dust proof, but you do get the amazingly good quality lens. The aperture blades are 100% functioning. There's no oil, there's no dust on the lens. It is a newer lens, but I don't see any issues with it. I haven't had to take apart one of these FA lenses or F lenses yet. Everything feels really solid. It is heavier than some of the other versions, but it's still a fantastic quality lens. Pentax does a great job of building great quality lenses, so I'm not going to knock the build quality on it. So next, let's talk about the versatility of this lens. This is a 50mm or a 75mm equivalent on ASPC, 100mm on Micro Four Thirds, I believe. So it is extremely versatile. This is like one of the most versatile lenses, focal lengths that you're going to find out there. So out of the versatility, I give it an 8. It's great for portraits, it can be really decent for landscapes, it can be great for cityscapes, it can be great for macro, it can be great for street photography, it can be great for some architecture photography. So it's a really versatile lens. It's one of the most versatile lenses out there. So it's fantastic. I don't have any issues with that. I gave it an 8 for the versatility. So all in all, that's going to break it down and give this lens, my goodness gracious. Let me do some wizardry. This is going to give this lens an 8. That is the score that I had given this lens, is an 8, which means that let's break into the whether or not, as a beginning photographer, should you get this lens or not. This comes down to whether or not you have the ability to have a camera body that does the things that I have mentioned before. If you have a camera body that has the auto, if you get a Pentax, this is a fantastic lens to use. Buy this lens. If you have an adapter that allows you to use autofocus and auto aperture, get this lens. It's a fantastic lens. Go ahead and do it. If you don't have that ability, don't have the ability to afford that, because I know they're going to be a little bit more expensive, and you don't already have a Pentax, I would avoid this lens. I was looking through all my other photos with all the other lenses that I have with the 50s, and I would say they're pretty dang comparable. Some of them have a little bit difference here and there. Some of them have this that does a little bit better there. I'll save that for another video, whether or not that's something to look at. But honestly, you will do absolutely fine getting the SMC Pentax A. You cannot even fathom how good of a deal that lens is. That's what makes this so difficult, is that SMC Pentax A is such a good lens for such an amazing price that it literally is a troublemaker. Because if it wasn't such a good affordable lens, then I would easily say, get this lens. This is a great lens to get. This is the one you should go for. But since it has the auto aperture, it's extremely easy to throw the focus. It's extremely easy to do some of the maintenance on it. And there's literally dozens of copies out there, and you can get them for next to nothing. I can't knock that lens. Like, I think as a beginner photographer, getting that lens over this one is very advantageous. Investing a little bit more to get this lens later down the line would be great if you have the ability to have a Pentax or have that autofocus feature on some of your adapters. And if not, then the SMC Pentax A is just going to do a great job and give you the ability to afford some of these other lenses. Now, someone that is a more experienced photographer, this is going to break into some of those higher end lenses right here with this F version of the lens. The FA is supposed to be a little bit better version, but based off of everything that I've seen, I think this is that great middle ground where it's a nuanced thing where, like, you barely see the difference in how much better some of those lenses are. Now, Whether or not it's better than the DA version or if the Pentax A version is better, again, I want to say that for a different video, but I am very happy that I purchased this lens. It's a lens that it stays on my Pentax body. It literally stays on my Pentax body. If I'm not going and using other lenses for a lens review, that is the lens I go for. That's the lens I put on there. That's the lens I use. I like the way it works. I like what it does, and I have zero complaints about it. I like the fact that I can switch it to autofocus or manual focus or manual aperture relatively easily, and I don't even have to worry about it because I'm so used to shooting manual. So with that being said, that would be pretty much it for this review. All the photos that I took, I took a couple photos with it. I didn't actually do a farmer's market street photography shoot, which you guys might actually be more used to seeing. This was actually me going on a little trip, and so I used this lens to just break it in a little bit, so you'll see a little bit different content. But all the photos that you see are completely unedited, and I hope you enjoy them. Like and subscribe. Hopefully we can get to 1,000 subscribers so I can give away a couple lenses. And again, God bless. Have a good one. I'll see you guys later.